Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one. Welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Our producer for the night, the great one himself, Maestro, Mr. Craig Gibson. We coming to you live via Love 97 FM. This is Tuesday, the 9th day of September 2025. And if it's a Tuesday, you know the deal. It's Maritime Matters. We encourage that if you're driving and tuning in with us, please do so cautiously and ensure to take your time and getting wherever it is you need to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for the night show, of course, 101 Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my little cousin Shantia Heal McBride and her lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau and, of course, Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport. Fill the prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site 101pharmacy.com. That's 101 Pharmacy, all lowercase, all one word, .com. The three locations are East Street South in Nassau, of course, Charles Sanders Highway in Nassau, and Explorers Way in downtown Freeport. So give us a check out anytime you're in those areas, or even if you're not in those areas and you need some medication, check out 101 Pharmacy, or if you're in Grand Bahama, Island Care Pharmacy, downtown Freeport. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. At BMC, we provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services. And I want to hail my Annie Mae. Good night, Annie Mae! Auntie Mae! Boy, Annie Mae got so much fans. Let me tell you something. I don't even think Annie Mae don't have a clue how popular she is. Because everybody knows she's 92 years old and going strong. Strong. Everybody knows she live up in Freeport and she carrying on. Annie Mae, I say good night to you, darling. I tell you, boy, I spoke to Annie Mae once or twice this week. Annie Mae say she getting them out together now. You know those dentures, she kept them out for a while. Now all the what you call the thing healing up. All the inflammation that she was getting from the infection. All that clearing away good. And you may say she's starting to eat a little harder stuff. She ain't just sucking soup. Annie Mae's a mess. My auntie boy used to say no teeth and gums. That's gums and no teeth, so you can't chew, you gotta suck soup. Anyway, Annie Mae could be better in short order. She tells me she's better now, and it ain't long to go now, but she almost back to normal. So Annie Mae, I say good luck to you. Continue doing what you do. We don't want you to feel no pain, because you know now. You know you're our girl. That's what I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Maritime Matters, and as you know, on this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters is brought to you weekly. That's every single week at 17:05. That's 5:05 p.m. Remember now, you get 12 o'clock, then you get, well, not 12 o'clock, 1200. And then after 12 midday, it goes to 1300. 14, 15, 16, 17. So 17 means 5 hours after midday. And 05. And that's when we roll in with Maritime Tick, 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 Tick. Matters right here on Love 97 FM. The primary purpose of our show is to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. And we also cover current maritime issues from the domestic and international maritime feeds. The phone number to reach us, should you wish to get in on the discussion during the show, is 326-8255. That's 326-8255. To hear a replay of this show or any of our previous shows, simply hit us up at any time via our YouTube page. That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. That's like I love you. Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just go to YouTube on your electronic device and type into the search box Maritime Matters Bahamas. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk maritime. Do we have our topics for tonight? Our topics for tonight, we ain't get no topics tonight. We are having tonight what we call a maritime open line. Maritime open line. In other words, we want you to come to us with any maritime concerns, any maritime topic, any maritime anything you want we to discuss with you. Need us to clarify something, you need us to just make a comment on something. That's what we're into tonight. So, you know, maritime is vast and wide, and we could talk about the 50,000 cargo ships out there. We could talk about all the passenger ships. We got almost 200 passenger ships. And guess what? They making them every day. We talked about passenger ships or cruise ships last show. We didn't get to finish. But I can tell you one thing. We are going to touch on that again because we didn't get to do our impact of cruise ships on the Bahamas. You know, we talk about everything except impact of cruise ships on the Bahamas. So that will start our lineup tonight, and then we can talk about some pilot operations, some marine pilot operations. You know, we got the new mandate to take the cruise ships around those private islands and into those docks. And when we talk about the impact of cruise ships on the Bahamas, we're going to talk about more places where we're going to put docks for cruise ships to have to go and need pilots. So we have some good people, some good pilots that made some good comments on, you know, the impact this new mandate is having as far as more jobs for pilots, more jobs for pilot boat operators, and all the rest of that good stuff. So we're going to dive into that a little bit and see what they had to say. And then we're going to talk about the new destinations that we're going to target, that the government of the Bahamas need to put docks in place for cruise ships to visit each of our family islands. We know we got Nassau and Freeport, and we could mention areas like Saudi Lutra. I wouldn't go as far as saying Cat Island because that not Castaway Key, which one is that? Half Moon Key, what used to be Little San Salvador. It's not, that's between north end of Cat Island and the south end of Eleuthera. So we'll call that an in-between one, right? And then, you know, we got all the rest, but we'll talk with them as well. So we're going to delve kind of deep into what all these jobs are and all the rest of that. But we want to start off with the impact of cruise ships on the Bahamas, because that's where we finish off last week. And remember last week now, we talked about all these new cruise ships being built. The Disney Destiny, 144,000 gross tons of ship. We talked about the Disney Adventure, which was already built, but not for Disney, but Disney bought it. And this ship was designed when it was built to carry the most, that was designed to carry 9,500 passengers. You know, no cruise ship today carry more than 7,000 passengers, eh? 9,500. But of course, Disney did some reconfiguration, stretched some of them one room into two rooms, and all the rest, make them suites and all the rest of that good stuff. You know, Disney ain't carrying all them people and jamming you up and stuffing you in. So Disney bought this 206,000 gross ton ship. One of the largest ships in the world. You got a handful of ships over 200,000. This one happened to be another one of them, right? But we got less than, I think, let me see. We got the Oasis class, which had like 6. And then, this probably make number 10. Number 10, a dozen, no more than a dozen for sure. But this make the big leagues, eh? And that's the Disney Adventure. It was formerly owned by the Genting Group. We talked about it last week. So if you want us to hit on that again, just let us know, right? We talk about the Hawaii getting sued by the cruise industry. They want to go green and they try to go up on the cost a cruise ship got to pay just to dock. They want to hit that when tax to go into effect in January that they hit the hotels with. And the cruise ship say, no, sir. No, not us. We are not paying that because that have no direct impact on us as a cruise ship coming in and going out. Your hotels may have some impact on that operation, but certainly not us. Taxes should be levied toward cruise ship direct affiliated activities, is what they're saying. And then, of course, we didn't do the impact of cruise ships on the Bahamas because we didn't get into those ports. So when we return, because we're going to take a little short break to start our day, when we return, we'll go on to that impact of cruise ships in the Bahamas. And once we get through with that, we'll be on that for a while because we got a lot of ports to talk about, right? And when we get through with that, mind you, we have open line, 326-8255. Feel free to call once we're in session. And we'll be happy to field your queries, your questions, even if you just want to say, hey, Captain Bain, what's happening, man? You're a little boring tonight, or you carrying on, or whatever you want to say to me. Come on, man, give me a call. And we'll roll with that. So in the meantime and in between time, we'll move to our first break. And when we return, we're going to talk about some impact of cruise ships on the Bahamas. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, and with me tonight is my producer, Mr. Craig Gibson. Thank you so much.
At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection. At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
Love 97 FM, the Bahamas. And on the World Wide Web at www.love97fm.com.
Sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia.
And welcome back. We welcome you back to Maritime Matters. Again, I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. The number to call if you want in on this discussion is 326-8255. And our session that we're now moving into is the impact of cruise ships on our country, the Bahamas. That, ladies and gentlemen, we can talk about that for a couple of weeks, but we'll just do like a little half hour on that, right? So, as we know it, not even half. I started to say last week, only half of our country can facilitate cruise ships coming and tying up to a dock. And we if we really look a little closer, if we peel off that layer and get to the next layer, we will see that it's not even half. It's just 2 destinations that we, the Bahamian people, facilitates or owns, because it's Nassau Harbor or Nassau Cruise Port, and it's Freeport Harbor or Freeport Harbor as it is. Cruise ships cannot go anywhere else in this country and tie up its ropes other than a private facility. And that is, I won't say it's horrible, it's terrible, but it's what we done. It's what we, see, because if you compare the Bahamas with the Eastern Caribbean, you know what you get? You get, because we are far more suitable or suitably fit to put docks where cruise ships can go in, right, to the island than most of those Eastern Caribbean countries. But you know what? Those Eastern Caribbean countries, each and every one of them can take a cruise ship. You know why? Because cruise ship is big time commerce. Cruise ship is big time tourists. Cruise ship is like a floating hotel. And just like how we want nice hotel facilities built on within our country so that tourists could come in and be merry and give us some tips, spend some money, because most of us in the tourism industry make money of tips. And I say most of us, not all, because some of us are owners and we make money based on buying something for cheap and selling it to you for not so cheap, right? And that's business. Business is you provide something, you buy it at a cost, and you sell it for profit. Otherwise, you might as well not even be in business, eh? And that's what the cruise ships do. And the cruise ships don't do this small time; they do this big time. And these days, they're building more and more brand new cruise ships, so that the entire world is feeling the effects, the impact of these floating hotels. And I can tell you that some parts of the world don't even want them. And we discussed a couple of those in past shows, like up in what area name we got, the red light district, Holland. Well, we just call it Holland, but we Amsterdam. Amsterdam say we'll take one cruise ship at a time, because plenty cruise ships want to go to Amsterdam because it is such a popular destination. And when you go there by cruise ship, the red light district close, eh? Well, I guess they never close. But what you will see in the daytime is only a small percentage of what attracts the thousands of people there every night. But because it's the red light district, and because it's Amsterdam, the tourists want to come off the ship. They don't only want to go to the red light district, they want to go in some of them little shops and light up a spliff. Because for those who don't know, when you're in Amsterdam now, drugs are legal. Marijuana in particular. I don't know if cocaine and stuff, you can find them or they have them legal, but I know for sure marijuana is legal, and they got shops and shops and shops with herb, and they got gummies, they got chocolate, they got all kind of things you could do to get. Now of course they get different variations of how high you could get, but you could get the good stuff too. And that's why a lot of people want to come off the ship, because they know they're going back on the ship when they finish, so they can afford to get high once in their life. Ain't like they drug addicts, Well, some Bahamians like us now, some of us, we said that thing very often. So if we go up there, we looking for the good stuff and we want a good dose of it. Anyway, that's Amsterdam. But that again is impacted by cruise ships, and they have said that they don't want more than one. They don't even want that one, because of course that's a destination that has so much. And then some of the Greek islands, because they're so small and they only get a handful of people, and they're nice to cruise, and they got the cruise ship facilitation for 1 or 2 ships. But again, they just feel like they're being overcrowded, because one cruise ship could have anywhere between 3,000 and 6,000 passengers, and that's like same thing going up in what do you name up north there, up in the cold Anchorage and Alaska. The Alaskan authorities limits the amount of cruise ships that can come there during a cruise ship. Now remember, now the Alaska can only be open during the summer months, because during the winter months the sea is all ice. Cruise ships can't go there, need icebreaker just to get out. So they go there in the summer, and then when winter comes, and that's why our cruise ship season is better during the winter, because those extra ships that go up to Alaska and go up to Norway and go up to Iceland, when summer comes, they can't go up there. So all of them now got to be in equatorial and around the equator area where they ain't too cold and where they could still have their destiny. And that's why we get kind of crowded. But guess what? We love it. Now the Bahamas, we happen to be in a very strategic position. Not only our location is immensely strategic, because we sit right on the doorstep of the 3 most the 3 largest home port facilitation for cruise ships in the world. We got Miami, Port of Everglades, and Port Canaveral. And then around the corner is the Port of Tampa, right? Which is also huge. So Florida is loaded. And once you get on the outside of the big 3, I call them, you're basically looking at the Bahamas. Because once you cross that Florida Strait, you're in the Bahamas. And we got a litany, because you see, we ain't complaining. We ain't trying to say, oh, too much of y'all coming here one time. We're trying to make room for more, because we don't have no problem with y'all storming in here. We got plenty islands, right? Although only Nassau and Freeport right now, well, I should say only Nassau the government controls, and Freeport is controlled by the port, which is like their government, right? So we'll stick that as government control. In other words, they're not controlled by the cruise lines. They're controlled by the port and by government. And that's Nassau and Freeport. Now they're private facilities, which is numbers far more greater than our Nassau and Freeport only. And we have to consider that when you talk about Freeport, they could take, I think, up to 3. Well, they don't get that much. They get like 1 or 2 the most at a time. But in Nassau, we could take 6 huge ones. I think they're trying to make room now for 7. And any of those private islands take only 1 at a time, eh? None of them can take more than 1. Whoa, no, let me change that. Now, because they're starting to put docks you can come on each side. Some of them could take 2, but most of them are designed to take just 1. The ones that they're now constructing, they are looking at 1 on each side of the dock, so they'll have 2 large ships, and that's what they're doing all around the world. If you go around the Caribbean, if you go to the Mexican Riviera, if you go to Central America, like Belize, and they now doing docks where 2 vessels could dock one time, right? And like that, they could get more ships. And so the same thing happening with our private islands. And let's talk about the private islands. Which one we had first? Let me see if my memory serves me kind of right. I think it started out with Princess Keys. Is it? I could be wrong, but as I recall it, I can tell you as I recall it. And some of y'all agents and stuff like R.H. Curry and and what the next one name? United Shipping, and them y'all agents who've been around for that. Y'all could call in and let me know exactly how it go. But I believe Princess Key was one of the very first ones, right? Along with boy, they call it, I don't know, because when I was on the Defense Force, we used to go to Little St. Sal and search that. We used to go to all them and search them. Gorda Key, we used to go to Stirrup Key, Little and Great Stirrup Key. We used to go to Ocean Key for fuel. So, ain't none of them that really exists. And that must have been about 30 plus years ago. So all of them are less than 30 years old, eh? So I think Princess Key was the first one, about the first one, if not the first one of the first, right? Along with Half Moon Key, which used to be Gorda Key. Well, we got a call. I hope that's one of those agents who could help me out here. Calling on Maritime Matters, hello.
Yes, Captain Brain. This is Captain Brain.
My brother, Captain Brain in person. How are you, sir?
I called you. Man, I top shape. I called to try to help you out.
Yeah, because you ain't on none of these things. You still on the fence for us? How you know which one was first?
Hello.
Oh, you still there? Yeah, where you going ducking so?
No, man, that's the technology was a little behind.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm trying to figure out because as far as I recall, me and you was on the force, and I left you there. How you know about these things ahead of me?
But I don't know the exact date and whatnot, but I know when I was at the port and in 2001.
You came to the port after me, man. When I was at the port, all these was up and going. All these were up and going. Princess Key was up and going. Half Moon Key was up and going. Stirrup, yeah.
Great Stirrup Key and Coco Key was in like and Disney was in them first three, and then they went on.
No. And I remember now. You know, Disney was Gorda Key. We go on there. Right. The last thing I remember was going there and blocking off the runway. But Disney was created when the Disney Magic and Disney Wonder came into service. It was created for those two. And when they came into service, I was already part of the apprentice because David and I used to bring them in, right? So I know for sure Disney wasn't there before Princess Keys and Half Moon Key. Disney was like later in the game.
Was Stirrup Key there?
Great Stirrup Key was there, but there wasn't as extravagant as they are today.
Key and Great Stirrup Key.
Yeah, the cruise ships used to anchor off Great Stirrup Key, and the cruise ships used to anchor off Coco Key as well, because you got to remember now, Great Stirrup, we used to search that a lot. I used to search that a lot, especially when I used to patrol with Jackson, Richie, and Dallas Battle. But we used to search Great. That was the one. Now Little Stirrup, I think they had a Honeymoon Harbor or something on that side, and then in the middle of the two, they had something called Slaughter Harbor, and we used to go in there all the time. So I know they had no cruise ships around in those days, right? Not going to those places.
Yeah.
So they would have been like the first four: Princess, Half Moon, Great Stirrup, and Coco, right? And Coco was a new name, so that I think Great Stirrup was in place before them.
Okay. Well, what I really wanted to dive into is the impact of cruise ships on the Bahamas and on these islands, and some like. I believe that when I look at Bimini, for example, and everybody can see the island, when that cruise ship is in, that island is buzzing with activity, never before seen in my lifetime, and the economic impact, I believe, to be huge for Bimini, right? But, you know, I've spoken to a lot of guests who frequent Bimini, and all the mystique about Bimini and the quaintness of Bimini when the cruise ship is in, it takes away to a large degree from that island experience. And so from an impact perspective, I believe that there's positive and there are negative impacts, and we have to as a country, we have to manage those things, because when we look at Nassau, for example, and the amount of garbage that originates from the ship, and how and whether or not these islands can in fact manage the amount of waste, solid waste that come from the cruise ship, it becomes something that we are we as a country, we cannot just look. We can't just look at from at the economics. We're gonna look at what's gonna happen down the road. What we going that be kicking down the road that we're not addressing. Our kids and our children gonna have to deal with those things, and it's gonna get worse. So as the islands begin to open up to this whole new phenomena called cruise ship and cruise passengers, we have to look at the pros and the cons, and we have to start putting in place plans to address these things, because we in the Bahamas, we only address things when they seemingly get out of control, and they start to have and the citizenry start to complain about it, or it start to have some negative financial overtone that impact the finances of the country. So I just wanted to put that in there, put that plug in there from a planning perspective, and so we could not forget as we begin to grow the industry, we begin to grow expectation, and we be able to manage these different things, these negativities that come from the cruise ship, while enjoying the good that also come from it as well.
Well, let's dissect a little, Captain Brain. Let's dissect a little the keys that have direct impact on communities that exist in the Bahamas, compared with those that have, well, I guess all of them have slight impact, but some have far more than others. You mentioned Resort World Bimini, and that's, I call it the World Resort World because that's the name of the facility, Resort World Bimini, eh? Yes, it's also a resort, and yes, people do go downtown or go into the town, Alice Town and Poggy Bay and those areas where the locals reside, and the locals provide, native stuff, food, entertainment, that type of thing. So there is that direct impact on that community, where the tourists can actually go into those communities, those settlements, eh? And that's Resort World Bimini. And then we have, if we go from way up, Princess Key, which is basically on the mainland of Eleuthera, on the South Eleuthera. It's not a key that you got to take a boat to get to. Once the ship let people come ashore, they tender because they anchor off. And then they have the whole island which is mainly the southern portion of Eleuthera. So they would have been impacting that South Eleuthera community from way back. But those were kind of tiny ships, they were not the size they are today, although they're getting bigger now that goes there, right? And then you have Half Moon Key in that same vicinity. And when the cruise ship goes to Half Moon Key, nobody goes to any settlement in the country. Half Moon Key, they stay on that key, they eat on that key, they beach on that key. So the local native Bahamian don't ever come in contact with those ones. No, right?
and everything is self-contained. However, the folks that come from Cat Island on a daily basis, who have jobs there, and Eleuthera, and those.
Well, I'm not sure people come from Cat Island. I almost everybody come out of Davis Harbor. Almost everybody for Half Moon Key. One time they used to do Cat Island, but they stopped using that. I don't know why. But they used to use Bennett's Harbor, but now they use Davis Harbor, and just about all the persons who go to Half Moon Key come by way of Eleuthera.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the folks who actually, they have living facilities, living accommodations.
Yeah, but them people don't come from Cat Island, is what I'm saying. They ain't have no tender from Cat Island anymore.
No, not tender on a daily basis. Tenders are from Davis Harbor, but
they tender the workers from Eleuthera.
Yeah, they have workers who actually work on the key, and they are Cat Island residents.
But they live in Eleuthera.
Well, they live
because the tender don't go to Cat Island anymore. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
No, they live on the key actually, and they spend XYZ time on the key, or whatever stint they have. And because I remember,
but even some people from Nassau, a lot of those boat captains
for their ISPS, there were Cat Islanders who actually worked on the key, and they were stationed there for like a couple of weeks at a time.
Or they used to
living on the
basically
key.
sleep on the key.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, fine. But let's start it out with Cat Island and Annie Lutra people. So even some people from Nassau go to drive the tenders because, you know, they're still anchoring off.
Yeah.
So they have some of the captains and crew out of Nassau because I recall very vividly Captain Frank Smith, before he, I think Frank passed on now.
Yeah, he passed.
May his soul rest in peace. He used to be up there, and they really used to manage the tenders and do all the crewing and that type of thing to make sure that service continues, you know.
Yeah, and Percenti as well from
That Floyd, yeah.
Floyd, yeah.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
dog. Yeah, well, you know some of these people, I gotta watch you.
Yeah, but the Cap, one of the things I just believe that as we just need to plan a little bit more around these type of activities. I don't think there's much. I don't think a lot of planning goes into some of the activities, although things naturally evolve or in different areas like Grand Davis Harbor and all those areas down Saudi Luther there. They're going to develop invariably because of that economic activity in that area, and so same thing will happen in Grand Bahama as a result of the operation in East Grand Bahama. But we have to plan a little bit better as a country for these things, because other countries, if you don't plan things, you're gonna have some things come out that you're not gonna be prepared for. And so that's my 5 cents on the whole, the impact of cruise ships and the like, and also similarly for Nassau, I think there's the amount of refuge in this country. I don't know, man. We have to look at that.
Yeah, but when you talk about planning, let's go back to your planning idea, which I really haven't gotten too good yet, right? But we have never, in my view, I mean, based on what I know, we have never planned to facilitate cruise ships in this country outside of Nassau Harbor. The government I'm talking about.
To be honest, we don't plan. There's very few things we really plan for, and we follow through with the plans, because
but we've been bombarded by cruise ships as we speak.
5-year cycles, and a lot of things are contingent on which government is in place at the time and whether or not they continue projects and improvements that are necessary. However, the planning that I am referring to is I'm talking about for long-term planning, and where we can actually go on the government website and look up the plan and see how we are progressing with the plans and whatnot. Plans for refuge, plans for economic activity in the area, plans for employment, upgrades for power based on the amount of people who are gonna eventually be in this area. Do they need to start planning for that now, or you just wait till a hurricane hit and then you say, okay, here's an opportunity to change the generator, let's put a bigger one then, or whatever the case may be. So that's the kind of thing I just believe that we have to do a little bit better in that regard when I talk about planning and forward thinking and the like. And we have a lot of people who have a lot of good ideas and whatnot, and I think a lot of these things can come out, and we need to talk more in town meetings, and we need to have people a lot more organizing in the various local communities. And I believe that the whole business of local government may help in that regard, but that's a different topic, so I won't go into that. But simply put, communities have to be more involved in some of these issues from the very onset, so that they can be addressed quickly before they escalate into problems that cost us a whole lot of money to fix.
Yeah, but I want to take you back to that planning before you go. I understand all of what you're saying, and what you're saying makes sense. But what I am trying to say on top of that, right? Because we talking the same thing, just that we looking at it from different perspectives. Your perspective is well received, but my perspective is outside of Nassau Harbor, the government has not identified one port in one island that we will try to put in place. See, and this is what I'm talking about planning, because we've been bombarded with all the private islands by the cruise ships, and whenever that ship go to their island, we don't benefit the way we could if the government was to put on some of these family islands. We got a very low hanging fruit with Morgan's Bluff, eh? Very, very low hanging fruit. If they were to put, you see, the cruise ships would not be in charge of the activities as they are when they go to their private islands. So the settlements will benefit. The government could encourage and incentivize people to do things, because all of our islands are unique, you know. The blue holes that you could go to when you go to Andres. You could go crab, well, you can't do that. Well, like you get to go digging crab. Like, we could make it very interesting. We could make it very interesting. You go to the red bays and watch the sponge fellas in action, bringing in the sponge, how they process the sponge, how they do the sponge, and the history of it. And it's just so much things, bird watching, things that can actually happen on these islands if the government was to plan and place cruise ship docks where these cruise ships, once they get in, it really would be put in place for them to do.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, on this show, I remember quite clearly that has been a horse that we've been whipping now for a very long time. Looking at Morgan's Bluff, and you mentioned Red Bay. There's a lot of history there.
Oh, yeah.
I've been to cruise ship destinations where graveyards is an activity that, or an excursion that you can go to a graveyard, and that in and of itself, the kind of things we have in Andros are going to be much more fascinating than visiting the graveyard, eh?
Well, when you talk about graveyard, you caused my mind going on Bullocks Harbor.
The graveyard.
The graveyard in. They got history on that. They got history on that too, you know. All the partying we do there.
But we have Andros is ripe for the picking, and you know, I just hope that in this as we look to the future, and as we look and see what we have the template right there, you know, what Disney would have done, what Royal Caribbean would have done, what Carnival has done in Grand Bahama. All we need to do is visit one of those ports and see how they have their act set up and replicate it to a certain degree, so that the logistics in moving that amount of people on and off the ship, we have the things in place, and I believe we could do it. It's just a matter of having that political will, and you have individuals who believe in that particular activity, and to go after and say, look, okay, we're going to do this. Whether or not we do it in this political cycle, or we do it in the next, it's somebody you have to do. What I realize in the whole scheme of things is that most of the public servants, it takes individuals to initiate things and to cause some things to happen by way of all the research and all the cabinet papers that have to be written and all that type of stuff. And so you're gonna have. So that's why it takes individuals to cause some things to happen. And once you have it done, once somebody does the homework, and the minister could present that in Parliament, and is something that's comprehensive, I believe it can happen. It's just that somebody have to take the initiative and say, okay, this is what we're gonna get this before the cabinet, and once they approve it, we can then begin planning in earnest.
But you know, we only have to look at the Eastern Caribbean. You know, you got a small island like St. Kitts. St. Kitts can take, I think, up to 4 cruise ships, right, at any one time. And when you go in St. Kitts, they have this big welcome center. They have it set up real nice. Now, well, you know, you can go outside the gate, outside of the port, and walk, because most of these, like when you could put a dock in a place like Cat Island, well, probably you got to be on the western side to try and get away from the prevailing weather, right? So you want to be like probably Devil's Point area, someplace just like how when they put Lighthouse Point, you notice they got Lighthouse Point and they have Princess Key. They were very selective in where they could put those docks. But Princess Key ain't got no dock. But look at where all the docks are for private islands. Look at the one that's put at Coco Key. That's on the western side because the wind is normally coming out of the east, right? Now I don't know what Great Star of Kegabee, as far as that dock is concerned, they probably ain't gonna be able to use that year round because that's gonna be right in the weather.
Great Star Keys dock is already in place.
Yeah, but I'm saying where they have it is not really protected like Coco Key dock.
Well, the good part about it is we are affected predominantly by the southeast trade winds, right?
Yeah.
So the island itself, the dock is on the northern side of the island, so the island itself helps to protect the dock.
They tried to find that western point that touches the ocean, so that was the best place to put that, right? And it's very strategic. But if we look at all our family islands, we can always find a spot where on the west the ocean touches, and we could put a cruise ship pier right there. And as you was indicating earlier, once you put a cruise ship pier anywhere along the rock, the entire area would become probably far more developed than what exists today as a capital settlement in those islands.
That's automatic. If you look at any big development, the communities around them develop as that development grows. If you put Walmart out in the middle of a desert, the community around there, Walmart, gonna develop. There will become a community there. Similarly, universities and those type of or factories and the like. The community developed around those big investments. A cruise ship essentially is a big hotel facility, and you put that big hotel facility anywhere in the Bahamas or wherever, development naturally will follow because they're going to have support services that will become necessary. Then there's transport services and everything else that goes with people living in a particular area, and then they're going to be a need for housing and apartments and to support day workers and boat repair, engine repair shops for the tenders and the like. So that will invariably that will develop.
But what I want to be careful of, though, you have to realize when you got facilities that are owned by these cruise ships, it's not quite so. Because if you look at Lighthouse Point and you look at Celebration Key today, you're not going to have a community develop around them because they're not going to have it. But if the government owns the dock area, that's a totally different concept. Because you got to remember these cruise ships trying to keep the money in-house. And then you can't blame them. That's what they for. They're trying to make money. So they don't even want people to go beyond what they put in place. But now if the government was to put a dock, like downtown Nassau, like Morgan's Bluff, like I say Hawks Nest area, like on the eastern side of Stocking Island, which wouldn't be a good place, but where else the ocean touch the land, eh? It got to be on the eastern side of Exuma. Like maybe Salina Point and Auckland and on that southwestern tip. I'm just saying that will be more ready for a community to build around it because the cruise ships ain't really own that.
But the thing is, Cap. When you talk about, if you look, every cruise have excursion, and I blame us to a large degree too, because if that cruise ship activity going to generate some ideas for various short excursions, and so definitely transportation is going to be one industry that's going to develop, and then also during the excursion, when people go off the ship, they want to try local foods.
They really want an excursion if they could put their own restaurants and their own straw market and their own. I do a lot of cruises, and I can tell you, they prefer to have the excursions right in their little neck of the woods. Well, right? They want to make the money of almost. Mind you, yes, they can do. They have the little beach, the beaching. Once they don't have a beach, where the facility is now, they can have. You could take them out on beach trips and diving expeditions and that's provided that can happen right in their own little neck of the woods. But they wouldn't have no own little neck of the woods if the government put it in place.
But you know, boy, I there's one of my biggest regrets, and I've been on the same show. I have mentioned it, and I don't think you and I agreed
I hope you didn't go to put something in place where you could make some money, didn't make the money, because I ain't never agree if you let that money get away.
I don't think you and I agreed on this. Is that destination within a destination, that development there on Paradise Island? Man, I think that was a mistake. You know, it's already far gone, and it's like beating a dead horse. But
yeah, I would never agree with that because that probably is not as bad as some of those sandals around the Caribbean, right? And breezes and beaches and those all inclusive places are far worse than that one you're talking about.
But you're talking about, I'm talking about, you have the destination is the port of Nassau.
But the port of Nassau will always be the destination.
If the port of call Nassau is your port of call, and you can't get those tourists off the ship and get them to go and explore the water tower and the Queen's Staircase and Montague, where I see them all the time, and off the Rose Island and whatnot. You allow the cruise lines to put a destination within your destination. That was not a. You
allow the cruise lines to do that?
Yeah, because that development there at Paradise Island, the cruise ships invariably will promote that, and once they promote that, their people go from the ship right there to that island. When they at 4 or 6 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock, they come back. They are hammered. They go back to the ship. They eat, and the ship takes off at 6 o'clock. And so we're not going to benefit. I mean, of course, there are going to be some people who decide to come off and go and walk downtown. And
well, what do we do? See, what I said on numerous of my shows, right? We should have a harbor walk. I'm talking about a nice harbor walk, no vehicles along that waterfront from Nassau Cruise Port all the way to Porter's Key. And I'm sure you've been in London many times like me, and if you see where the London Eye is and the Westminster Bridge, when you come down Westminster Bridge, you could walk along the Thames River, must be about another 2 miles, and all you have is places, nice restaurants, this, that. See, those are the type of things that people will come off the ship for. But why aren't we doing some things like that? Because if these people want to put up a place where you can just come and drink and be merry, right? That's an addition to what we could do. Why don't we do some things as opposed to just leaving everything as it is? We wouldn't even put in a zip line so people could say, oh, the zip line look good, I could ride over the water, and how could that feel like how they have the London Eye? We'll have a zip line. Yeah. Or we could have a harbour eye someplace in there. We need to do some things to want them to come off the ship and utilize what we put in place. But it's us who ain't doing it.
I mentioned earlier about having planning and town meetings and people getting involved and I just think that all the things that you say we would have discussed prior to this particular episode of your show, and apparently seemingly they fell on deaf ear, right? But yep. I just feel as though when we in our planning moving forward, the public and Joe Public got to be involved in these ideas, generating ideas and looking at the viability, whether or not this could work, or what's the financial impact, and whether or not we could get a private entity to fund this one or that one, or all of it, or whether or not it have to be, So it's just a matter of how we for a long time we rely on a group of people we call government to do these things and to come up with ideas and to fix some of these things. But we have to fix these. We have to fix these things, and we have the discussion, and that's why I'm very grateful for this particular show when it comes to maritime, because we could throw some ideas out there and we could hit them back and forth to determine pros, cons, or whether or not it's to work or whatever. But these type of firms are very necessary, and if we're going to build this country, we have to be able to talk and share ideas and to come together to make some of these things work, because I might have been able to afford a little ice cream or a little ice cream parlor along the boardwalk or popcorn machine or whatever the case may be. And so that's the kind of thing, and I love the idea of the boardwalk. I think previous governments have discussed that project, and you know, like I said, things have happened in political cycles, particularly in this country, and you know.
You remember walking down the boardwalk in Halifax?
Oh, indeed.
So, if Halifax ain't half as pretty as our harbor,
not a quarter, not.
So why we slunking? Why can't we do something similar to that? Much better, much prettier, and people would want to come off and go in those restaurants and do that walk and look at vessels and all the rest of that stuff. What is there? Why are we so? I mean, see, only the elected officials, they control our purse, right?
Yeah.
They control our price, they control the borrowing, they control the spending, they control the contracts. All I'm saying is we gotta find a way for them to plan it into that into that financial gambit of things.
Well, don't necessarily you hit all the controls except one. They controlling seemingly the way you think and what you will, how the way you dream, because I can't. Your dream and your aspirations for this country, seemingly, we will have given that up to those individuals, and they. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if they even dream. Some of them, right? And so we have to take the bull by his horn, and we have to come up with some stuff now. How, whether or not the Bahamians going to get the same type of incentives and whatnot, that's another thing that's going to drive and spawn some of this economic activity. Because when we go downtown, look at downtown. Downtown is you know, after you pass Hartford, that's it. Coming east, you know, so whether or not they're going to have some changes to spark some economic activities, and we got to incentivize Bahamians to be able to do it, or else we're going to end up suffering with foreigners coming in and doing everything and then taking all the money out the country again.
And again.
Yeah, indeed.
so what we really need to do is, I mean, like you say, we could talk about it, we could discuss it, we could highlight it on the show, but like you say, you know, every 5-year cycle, you know, recently we've been doing some switches every 5 years, but before, even if you can switch every 5 years, there's some things that the government of the country, no matter which administration is in power, right, the government of the country has put in place, and for example, when we think about the pledge that was made by the current Prime Minister to the United Nations, that all of our government departments will be solarized, all the vehicles will be EVs by 2030, and this is our pledge to reduce the 75% carbon reduction by 2030, right? If the government was to change, that don't change, because that is a pledge that the Bahamas government made to United Nations, not the PLP administration made to the United Nations, right? And it'll have to be followed through. The next government coming in place, if things change, wouldn't be able to say, oh, that's what the PLP do. We're checking for that. No, not when it comes to pledges to the international bodies.
Well, stop, review, and cancel. And
stop, review, and cancel when it's not dealing with pledges the country made to international bodies. You can't pull back because the administration changed when you're dealing with those. So we need to have some kind of plan. Well, I mean, I don't know how it's possible for us to have some kind of planning that a new administration wouldn't be able to change, because if it's domestic, then obviously they'll be able to change it. So I may just be talking in the wind to say, well, that's what I like to see, but the reality that happening is, you know, but one got to put it in place, even if they come back later and pick it up and run with it again, because that has been happening. It's been happening when they come back in power, they pick it up, brush it off, and start going again.
Yeah, the point that whether or not is international or domestic, the point is well taken in that certain projects that's in the best interest of the country have to continue, and and we can't play politics with certain things. Like, for example, I've heard there was an announcement about a new hospital, and contracts probably have already been given out for certain aspects of this work or whatever the case may be. And we need a new hospital right now. Whether or not how that's going to play out futuristically, whether or not we stop, review, and cancel, I do not know. But things like that, those type of critical infrastructure ought not, like you said, we ought not to play politics with those things. And we need to follow through with a lot more things, not only on the international scene, but domestically as well, particularly things that impact the vast majority of Bahamian major road works and highways and the like,
Well, it depends on the project itself, because what I know, I did project management and I went to Barbados for 3 months. What I know about international lending for projects is they come with some obligations that you got to get the money dispersed and you got to have certain things in place. And if the government changes, that doesn't change. So if you was to get money from the World, not the World Bank, what's the name, the agency, IDB to build roads in Cat Island, right? And the government changes, they can't stop that from going on because that project is so streamlined. As far as bid packaging, as far as resources, they already have everything written out, how that whole thing will play out. And you can't divert from that once that has been approved. So things like that. Now local lending or local projects, local contracts is something totally different. They're the ones you could stop, review, and cancel. Because, of course, they would be politically motivated, and if I'm in power, I can give it to my boy who helped me get in power. I'm not going to give it to the other side. That's just how life goes.
But the difference is, like you said, the contracts are very streamlined in that the different tranches of funding won't be released until the certain things happen in terms of verification and quality of work and all that stuff, and then you could draw down on another tranche of funds or whatever. So they never give you the whole thing in the first instance.
So if we're getting money from one of those international sources to build these docks, just like we got money for the Sandy Bottom project, right? Mm-hmm. If the government changed, that couldn't affect Sandy Bottom project once it was established.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same thing with these docks. We need to get an international lending agency to agree. Well, of course, you got to put in your business plan and all the rest of that. Why we need this dock, how we can make money from this dock. People can move back from the city into the islands to be able to facilitate these cruise ship stops and all the rest of that. Because once we put it in place, it can be used. And once the funding comes from an international source, at least we know those docks will be built.
Well, you go in far, Cap. Let's start with one dock first. Let's start with Morgan's dock. That's the easy dock to extend and for cruise ship and the dredging associated therewith. All we need to do is if we get the dock, we get a price out, the cost of the dock, cost of the dredging, the necessary dredging for the turning basin. And the navigation aids that are required. At least we'll have, as a country, we'll have a starting point. We'll say, okay, futuristically, we need X amount, $100 million to make this project happen.
Yeah. Yeah. We be able to minimize the cost by doing certain things and planning certain things. We'll know exactly how much money we need. And that will be, like you say, most of these docks, to tell you the truth, when you talk about some of these piers that cruise ships come, it ain't no big, large, humongous costs.
Not at all.
So we just need to identify which ones cost less, which ones could be more impacting according to exactly where they have to lay on the land, and just do a schedule as to. Because it could be done over a 20-year period. It don't have to all be done in the first 5 years.
Yeah, but you got to start somewhere.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for that injection and that input. And I got some more stuff to cover here. as far as this impact of cruise ships in the Bahamas. I know we discussed some of them. I want to talk more about, for example, Great Stirrup Key and Coco Key. The impact is not that the tourist or the visitor would go to Great Harbor Key, but the impact is that every morning you see a bunch of speedboats going up to those two keys to carry workers. Right? And you can have at the same time jet skis, water sport equipment, in addition to the general workers who go in up there to clean and to provide engineering services, and all the rest of that stuff. Some of them go to sell straw wares. They have a setup for a straw market, and all of these things are happening, and that's the kind of impact. Although the tourist or the visitor is not going directly to the Great Harbor Key or Bullocks Harbor, they still having that significant impact for the locals, the natives of Great Harbor Key.
Well, when you look at, for example, you mentioned jet skis, and I'm happy you mentioned that, right? That's an activity. The cruise lines, they would actually go into a business arrangement with one individual entity. In some cases, with Great Stirrup Key, they actually invested, as I understand it, into some of the equipment, and then I'm not sure how much it was a profit sharing type arrangement, and so everything when you talk about cruise ship and the private island, they want to make as much money as they possibly could out of every activity that they allow at their private island. So one or two persons may benefit, but we also have to look at, is it benefiting the masses? How do we get the masses more, give them a little bit more of this economic pie?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because what you're talking about right now is a spin-off from pressure being brought to the cruise ships that they cannot outrightly own and operate these things, because that's what they were doing. And after the pressure is being bought, and it was bought about 20-something years ago, and it was pushed aside. I could tell you the name of the politician, but I don't call names on the show. And he pushed it aside, and he made certain threats to some of the workers at the port department. I know about this, right? And it just went away. But now that we've been flying it quite a bit on Maritime Matters, and then there were points of people from who work on those keys before calling in and saying that yes, the cruise ship own all these things, right? The cruise ship has now come to realize, or they were bought to realize, that if you own this stuff, you ain't supposed to be owning it. And while you say they're partnering with some Bahamian entity, it's supposed to be 100% Bahamian owned. They ain't supposed to be able to partner with nobody.
Well, the reality is that used to be the case. Like, I'm not sure in some places like Half Moon Key, I think they own it. That's every activity is their activity, right?
Yeah, but we need to get that stamped out, because that's totally against our law. They're breaking the law every time they do that. And as the Boat Registration Act and all the rest of them, they would have the Port Authority Board to ensure that these things are 100% beneficially owned. Well, only in the case where Bahamian cannot provide the service. Like sometimes they would have had boats come in that do extremely high speed, and we had no Bahamian skill enough to drive them. They would have gotten from the, I think is the Economic Advisory Council, something out of the Office of the Prime Minister, they would have gotten a leeway to still bring that in, and they would have ownership of it, but they had the obligation to, from day one, start to train Bahamian captains, which eventually happened, and then they need no more foreign just like when we started with the pilots. They had no Bahamian pilots in Freeport Harbor, and when it come to piloting those ships at Barco and Freeport Harbor, we had, I think, Pilot Roll would have been the first one. Then we had Monzel. Then we had Eugene, Cliff and Eddie. But outside of those guys, they were all foreign, and I don't even think just recently, I think South Riding Point started to take on Bahamian pilots and got rid of the expat pilots. So they do these things, but they shouldn't be doing it, and they'll hold on to it as long as they could.
Well, it goes back to what I would have said about how we plan and how we execute things, right? You mentioned the Port Authority Board. A lot of these things, a lot of these activities, when you look at the mandate of the board, a lot of these things fall under the Port Authority Board to have regulatory oversight over. But again, those are the kind of things we have to address. We have to get the board membership right. We got to get what their mandate is. We got to get that right.
Oh,
we have a lot of work to do with the enforcement, because a lot of these things, a lot of the regulation and a lot of the laws that govern some of these activities are there. We just need to enforce them, and who's responsible for that?
Yeah, well, the board members are appointed by the administration that is in power. And the thing about it is, like you mentioned, most of these board members, and I don't want to say all, I'm really tempted to say all, they don't realize they don't read the Port Authority Act or these other acts they're supposed to know so that they can carry out their duties, because everything is written out, All of their responsibilities are written out.
Yeah.
They don't have a clue what they're supposed to be doing because they don't want to read and find out. And in some cases, I'll say the minister don't even read. I ain't talking about the current minister. I'm talking about over the period of time. Ministers don't really understand what all they're supposed to be doing when it comes to these type of things, because things be going their own way, and nobody checks them, and they continue to go that way. And in a lot of cases, the technical persons in the departments kind of run things the way they want to run it.
Yeah, I would. It would be interesting. Someone, this is on a completely different note, though. I want you to. I'm not sure whether or not there is somebody out of Inagua or the Customs Department or whatever the case may be who could shed some light on this. But I'm advised that the cargo vessels that traditionally used to ply between Nassau and Haiti, I'm not sure if they stop it. They're now there's still some still at Port-au-Ski dock, and the ones that coming up to bring the fruits and supply and vegetables from Haiti and the like. The law speaks to them. You cannot engage in international trade unless you flag. Well, they're supposed to go to Inagua, drop off goods, and then come back. And then boats, or the local boats, or the Haiti, supposed to pick up from Inagua and take it to Haiti. But I just want to know whether or not that is actually happening. I don't know if you have any insight on that.
My understanding when I started the show was yes. The all the trade vessels commuting between the Bahamas and Haiti were obligated. They were told that they cannot pass Inagua and go nowhere else. If they come to trade, they'll trade with Inagua. And there are a couple of things that the Coast Guard in the U.S. would have done to get them out of Miami River, right? When the Caribbean Code first came around, one of the main reasons for the U.S. Coast Guard implementing that Caribbean Code, I want you to know the U.S. Coast Guard did that code. That wasn't done by us, right? They did that in conjunction or in unison with some of us in some meetings. But they put it together and we tweaked it, right?
Right.
But the thing with that is most of those Haitian sloops were wooden.
Yeah.
And because they were wooden, they couldn't meet the requirement for fire retard and all the rest of that stuff. So they automatically couldn't come back to Miami, and they all started to come to Nassau, right? And then we ended up, because really what we should have done at that time is we should go and put port state inspection on them and say to them, well, this ship got to be detained. You can't meet the requirements. You can't, and you can't go back out to sea on this boat because you don't have your EPIRB and your this, and you have no radar. You have no safety equipment like life raft and lifeboats, and no, you can't be between here and Haiti moving up and down in an unsafe way. But we didn't even get that far.
Now, I just wanted to know whether or not I know that we were successful in moving that activity from Nassau Harbor down to Inagua, and I just was curious if you had any insight on whether or not the enforcement of that particular government law initiative with respect to that foreign flag vessel, because they used to, you would be aware that they used to register with the port and they used to do international travel when the port couldn't license you to do international travel.
No, what I'll tell you what they used to do.
All that has changed.
No, let me tell you what they used to do. When I first got sent to the port department, what we made in place was those Haitian sloops were owned, over 60% of them were owned by Bahamians. Right? Bahamians would go and purchase them and have the Haitians run them. So the Bahamians wouldn't purchase them under the boat registry. They wouldn't register them. They registered them under the Water Ski and Motorboat Control Act, which means they didn't have to get inspected. They were not, as far as they're concerned, these are not commercial vessels, right? Which was in itself a flaw,
right?
Because if you're using this vessel to commute between two countries to carry cargo as a cargo vessel, although it have sail and ain't got no engine, you have to register international. You can't even register that under the Boat Registration Act.
Yeah, because engage in international trade.
Because Boat Registration Act don't cover that. You really had to get that registered by the BMA or one of those flags, like you say, right? So not fully getting a grip on that back in the 60s now, when the port started to register them under the Water Ski and Motorboat Controller. That just continued its way. And of course, corruption played its part in that too. You want to get a boat registered, how much money you got, right? Well, and that's the way it was.
Yeah, well, it would be interesting to know whether or not that is still being enforced. Because
no. I that stopped long, but that's something that we stopped while we was at the port.
No, I talking about, and now I talking about, you go on Policy Dock, you see the mattresses and all the stuff still coming, and these boats are.
I thought those mattresses used to come out of the U.S.
No, these mattresses, I talk about mattresses from the hotels, when the hotel change out mattresses and the old oil and everything else, the buckets and everything is still coming to Policy, and the boats are still there, some of them, and they're still loading, and it'd be interesting to know whether or not it's being enforced. And I would imagine, any international vessel coming to the Bahamas from the south must clear customs or should clear customs at Machitang in Agua, and customs will then give them a cruising transit to come up to Nassau or whatever.
Right. Customs they give that to them under the new regulations is that they would clear in Machitang, and once they offload their goods, they head back to Haiti. They don't come to Nassau. They have no authorization to come to Nassau. Right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't think that ever changed. But see, we also got to remember we have a port state regime. So those vessels coming to Port of Ski, even if they come by default or if they come without proper authorization, they should never be allowed to leave. They should be detained. But our port state inspection regime is be joking, right? And they need to start from somewhere and work in conjunction with the port department, who are the administrators of Port of Ski, and let them know if you have a boat coming that is not registered under the Boat Registration Act or the Fisheries Act, or well, even the Water Ski, but that don't really exist for non-commercial vessels. Please, could you let us know, because we would need to inspect them, especially if they're not a Bahamian vessel.
Exactly.
And once they do that and they get together on that, that's easy. Stamp it. That's like how the Coast Guard stamp it out in Miami River. That's easy to do.
Yeah. So all those are the kind of things that seemingly slip through the crack on a daily basis here. And so when we look at everything that we do, there got to be enforcement. There got to be planning associated with it. There got to be consultation with local communities who feeding information into the system so that we can put in place corrective measures and the like. But we have to get the engines, the maritime engine, turning and firing on all cylinders so that we could fix our maritime domain and environment.
You run me right into the local safety certificate. Why you bring that up? You know, I can't get. I mean, the reality is we need to start doing the things what on the books.
Indeed.
And the most important things put on the books.
Yeah.
And we could run, but we can't hide. We got that thing called the BMA. All they want to do is focus on international ships on the registry. When are they going to focus on our country? When they going to put some things in place for the domestic fleet?
Well,
you know, they're not checking. So until the minister put pressure on them, because obviously they have a board, and I think their board checking it out. But do their board really know what their responsibilities are? Because I know some people who are on the board, and I know they don't have a clue, right? I don't know who on the board, and I really even care. But I know one thing, they can put me on it, right? And they probably wouldn't put you on it. But look at the Port Authority boards over the years. We had people like Leon Flowers, like Harvey Sweeten, Anthony Allens, myself, Patrick Musgrove, deputy controllers like Cyril Roker, Brent Williamson. But why, if these are the people who understand the Boat Registration Act, the Water Skiing and Motorboat Control Act, the Jet Ski Act, and Port Authorities Act, if these are people who want to wake it up to understand, why when they get out of that department, they're not placed on the board for guidance? Patrick McNeil, why? Why they just use a bunch of people who don't have a clue what's supposed to be going on?
Well, I think it was one of the first couple episodes of your show, that was a big topic of discussion, and I don't think we were able to solve that mystery. But hopefully, in this lifetime, we'll figure it out.
Well, yeah, you mean in your lifetime, boy? Because this lifetime is continuous.
With that said, thank you very much, Cap, for the opportunity to share. And I think it's a very interesting show, and we need to have more open shows so that people, hopefully more people be inspired to call in. And I just want to speak directly to the Bahamian public. We all in this together, everybody has a stake in this. And so while you may not be directly involved in maritime per se, you are involved because you are Bahamian, and everything affects everything and everybody. And so where there's opportunities to offer suggestions or to comment or offer information that's going to help to fix some things, then I invite everybody to participate, call into the show, write into the show, offer these advice, these tips, intelligence, whatever the case may be, but be a part of growing this industry and fixing our Bahamas. And with that,
thank you, my brother.
Thank you very much.
You had the last say, and you were very integral part of this show. I thank you so much for your input, your able input, and your expertise. Let's keep it up, and let's keep the show rolling. So I thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the great Herbert Alpheus Brain. As you know, he's extremely qualified. He's extremely knowledgeable when it comes to maritime matters, and I'm extremely always very happy that he calls in and shares his knowledge with us. And that charge that he just made to you, the Bahamian people, I fully publicly endorse that for times moving forward. We the people need to really try to move maritime forward. You may not have a lot of knowledge about it, but we get common sense. We see all these things going wrong, right? So we could even if you call into to inquire, because I can guarantee you in most cases I would have heard about it and I would be able to expand on it a bit, and then that's the way we keep pressure on those that we put in power, those who have the ability to make changes and improve on these things. So with that, our show comes to conclusion. As always, I want to say good night to my Annie May, to our sponsors, Bahamas Maritime Connection, 101 Pharmacy, Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport, to my great producer, Mr. Craig Gibson, and to you, our most valued listener, or listeners. We say, Maritime Matters. Tick, 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 tick. Out.
And I watch them roll away again. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for. Look like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification